So we'll start with a question of why study Ayurveda and take a look at the context in which Ayurveda comes to us, the gifts that I would say it has to offer, how it really emphasizes and enhances our sense of intuition, not as a kind of magical property, but as a kind of tuning in to perceptual reality. And then also Ayurveda as a way of seeing. And then Bridget has a question from Dublin. Matthew, can we access the slides after the live class? There isn't really a way for me to do that. What I suggest is that you take as the best notes that you can, and then, as I said in an email to the group before, I'll figure out some sort of discount code for you to review the presentation as a recording afterwards. So I hope that works for you. So we'll start with some basics. Ayurveda is the naturopathy of the yoga system. It's often called the sister or the mother of yoga. And it shares yoga's tradition and, most importantly, its language. So if you are a yoga practitioner, this is really the medicine that is designed for the series of practices that we know as yoga. I would also say that if you're a yoga practitioner and that you seek yoga as a therapy, Ayurveda provides an empowered medicine to support it. And what I mean by empowered medicine is that it's really a medicine that is focused upon the primacy of your internal experience as a guideline for what you need in any given moment, on any given day, and in any given circumstance according to your constitution. Thirdly, I'd say that with Ayurveda, the data that we use is sensual. To find the causes of imbalance. It's not technological, it is not chemical, it is not statistical, it is sensual. And this provides a way of immediately seeing and making healthful connections. And really the point is that it starts to awaken an inner physician through this poetry of sensations and how they interact. In terms of gifts, I want to introduce a few words here. One primary gift that I would say that Ayurveda offers is a renewed contact with what I'll call the living world. Living world is a common translation for the German Lebenswelt. And this is a word that the early phenomenologists used to describe the fact that we really can't discern a line between what we call ourselves and what we call our surroundings. And if you want to do a little experiment in living world sensitization, we can just pause right now, and if you have a wooden surface close to you, place your hand against it and feel its texture, feel its gravity, feel its firmness, feel everything that it gives you, and then quietly within yourself begin to name the sensations that you have. So go ahead and do that just for a few moments. You might say it's smooth. It might be textured or grained. It might be resilient. It might be very firm. It might be cold. It might be cool. It might be warming up by this point if you're still touching it. And the point is that there isn't a single adjective that you can use to describe your contact with that wooden surface, that desk or that floorboard, that isn't also actually a description of your own being. In other words, if your hand down onto the ground gives you the sensation of firmness, it is only to the extent that your flesh, that your own body is yielding. If it gives a sensation of roughness, it's only to the extent that your own flesh, your own sensate perception is soft. Yeah. So any descriptor that you give for the surface that you contact is actually in an inverse description of yourself. And this is not just a language game. This is a felt reality. We have this conviction that we're sitting in a world that we can look out into and then describe, but really the world is describing us as much as we are describing it. It is interacting with us, and not in a mystical sort of angelic way. It's interacting with us in an immediate perceptual way that governs every single moment of how we feel ourselves to be. So the next word is flesh, and it's a word that I will use over and over throughout this presentation, but also going on for the next 4 presentations as we meet every Sunday for those of you who are available. Flesh is a translation of Ponty's word la chair, which he uses to point out the difficulty of separating mind from body. So one of the things that you'll see when we go through the material this morning is that attributes that we would associate to the body and attributes that we would associate to mental or non-material experience are completely blended within Ayurveda. There's no body that stands outside of feeling. There's no thought that stands outside of the body that makes it happen. So flesh is a pretty useful word. It really brings attention to the fact that the body and mind in Ayurveda are not in any way separate. A further gift that I would say Ayurveda brings is a sense of homeodynamic balance. And this is opposed to an early, well, actually not early, but a kind of Renaissance medical ideal of homeostasis, in which we've conceived of health as being a kind of protective bubble around the individual. And the homeostatic view of health is something that we continue to see in our contemporary hospital culture, where basically the threshold, now we know this isn't true because actually hospitals are very famous for infectious diseases, but the premise of the homeostatic body within modern medicine is that the threshold of the hospital, just like the threshold of the body itself, is this protective layer, and within that protective barrier, health can exist. But Ayurveda actually says the exact opposite. Health exists in relationship to our ecology, in relationship to season, in relationship to the climate that we live in. So my note says homeodynamic balance means that we are never really healthy on our own, but we are healthy within living world or healthy within our circumstance. So you'll see as we go through that there are no, there are no quick fixes within Ayurveda. When we speak of Ayurvedic health, we're really speaking about how we relate to the entire world, circumstantially and constitutionally. So the next bit is Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. And you can actually say that to yourself just under your breath even. Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. It's a beautiful phrase from the Vedas, which translates in a number of different ways. The most famous translation is, as in the egg, so in the universe. We could also translate it as above, so below. as within, so without, as in the human experience, so in the surrounding ecology. And really, this is an elucidation of the homeodynamic principle, but it's given in a nice mantra that has quite a ring to it. Further, I'd say that there's a strong encouragement within Ayurveda to address all levels of experience within the same therapy. Now, I've spoken a little bit about this so far, but I'll give a concrete example. In Ayurveda, it does not make sense, for example, to consider your nutritional health in some sort of separate way from your psychological health. It doesn't make sense to consider your digestive health in isolation from your emotional health. So there's something about Ayurvedic therapy that insists that we be really, truly holistic. And then I would say that along the same lines, but even more specifically, a very beautiful bit of Ayurvedic wisdom is its capacity to break down the categories by which we typically separate experience. So physiology will be predictive and retrodictive of vitality. Vitality will equal how we function in terms of cognitive psychology, or it won't equal it, but it will be informed by, it will be influenced by. And then our unconscious psychology will be thrown into the mix as well. And in Ayurveda, we seek to treat all of these at the same time. And not necessarily through different therapies. There might be a particular food or herb that will treat your psyche and your soma equally at the same time. So we'll take a look at that in a bit. One very beautiful gift of Ayurveda is that it shows that you have intuition about yourself, about others, and that this intuition exists below the radar of everyday thought, that you have the immediate sense that you get of somebody's presence, of their energy, of how they comport themselves. This can be trusted. You are getting clear signals constitutionally from the people that you interact with, and beginning to read what those signals say is really, really sweet. The intuition of Ayurveda shows up in every yearning towards re-embodiment that we have. And it shows us that below concepts there's an instinctive phenomenology. There's a way of interacting with the world that does not have to do with concepts and rationalism and scientific method, but upon immediate experiential wisdom. And I would say finally that the intuition that Ayurveda begins to unveil speaks from the person within us who is still evolutionarily coherent, as I reach for my tea, with our ecology.